morning. I'm pretty impressed to see so many of you here starting the day after last night. How many of you went to the after party? Wow. And then the after party. Okay, I'm even more impressed. Well, it's been a great week. Our team appreciates all of you for being here. I've had a wonderful time meeting so many of you, seeing so many faces again, and reconnecting over the last couple of days. And today we have a great, powerful day, starting with recognizing a group of leaders here that I have joining me in just a moment. They were recognized by their teams and their organizations, and they were nominated for their awards in HR, talent, learning, and leadership. So I'm excited also to allow them or give them the opportunity to share some of their achievements. And so I think it's a great way to kind of round up the week after celebrating organizational programs. We also need to take time to recognize the leaders that give us the opportunity to flourish in our organizations and in our communities. Also want to thank our sponsors. Again, without our sponsors, we could not create such an exceptional experience. And so now let's go ahead and get started. Dr. Marr, joining me from Brandon Hall Group, is going to welcome each of you to the stage. So when Dr. Marr calls your name, if you could please come join me on the stage.
All right, good morning, everyone. First up, we have Ms. Connie White. If you can please join us. Big round of applause for Ms. Connie White. She is the Chief People Officer at Altos Labs, and Connie White won a Gold Human Resource Award for Best HR Leader. Thank you, Connie. Next up, we have Ms. Dana Jones. If we can call her up. Come on, Ms. Dana. Ms. Dana Jones is the Executive Director of Learning and Leadership Development at Regeneron Pharmaceuticals, and Dana won a Silver Learning and Development Award for Best Learning Leader. Next up, please join us, Ms. Kelly Stewart Johnson. Kelly is the Global Head of Learning at VML and a Gold Human Capital Management Learning and Development Best Learning Leader. Kelly Stewart Johnson making L&D a business driver. Thank you, Kelly. Next up, we have Ms. Sarah Cavalucci. Welcome, Sarah. Sarah is the Director of Customer Service and Training at GS1. Sarah won a Gold Learning and Development Award for Best Learning Leader. Last but not least, Ms. Tracy Wrights. Come on up and join us. She is the Executive Vice President of Client Operations at Caduceus Health. Tracy won a Bronze Learning and Development Award for Best Learning Leader.
Well, that's something. Another round of awards for these amazing leaders here. Connie, can you kick us off here in kind of taking a deep dive into, you talked on the first day here or second day with our, on our panel talking about the future and scaling and around skills. So expand upon that. What's a non-negotiable that you put in place to ensure that you're able to create these opportunities for learning and to upskill and to be able to scale and really equip your teams with the knowledge and tools they need to succeed?
Yeah, yeah. So I'll talk about my team first. Really great question. And I think it's applicable to all organizations because our organizations, everyone here, our organizations are always going to evolve in some type of a way. So I think whether or not you're starting out and you have a potential growth organization or you have a mature organization, you're wondering where it can go in its future evolution, this is pretty broadly applicable. So just really thinking of scale and learning, something I put into place very early on. I'm talking about I was one of the founding executives of my company. The first few months is I put in how can we connect with each other. So, and this is foundational. So we didn't even we had Slack. Obviously, we all know how to use Slack, but we just had that. But we didn't even have an intranet yet. We were in stealth. So that was a wild experience. So I said, what can we do foundationally to put into place? So one thing is talking about, is having, like, what does being a leader mean? And I defined it. And it's not, I said, well, this is what we're going to need to be successful as a company. This is what we're going to need to have people adapt very early on to the organization. So I brought in a program, I called it Thriving at Altos, and I had 6 coaches that came in, and when new leaders came into the organization, they got 6 sessions with the coach. And the reason why, there was 2 reasons why. Number one, I wanted people to have an even sense of, in their own style, what were the baseline for being a good leader. The second thing is, in our company, we started out with 70% of academia and 30% industry. I'm in the biotechnology life sciences. So that is something that our academic colleagues never experienced. A coach, they have performance reviews. It was nothing like that. So I said, let's have people on a similar playing field, speaking the same language. And that was really helpful to just have a foundation of what does being a leader mean. So then they became the, like kind of frontier, leaders for the company. The other thing that I can't emphasize enough is really good communication practices and like a weave around communication. So I set up with a couple of team members, I had this idea, we didn't even have intranet yet, of a company magazine where people can get information. And I had features on being a leader. So it's a matter, what I would encourage everyone to do is think of something like hard, like what are skills you need to build and what's training that you can provide for the skills. Soft, like in this company magazine, I had various leaders have a profile about their thoughts on being a good leader, leading teams, so that influence. And then those day-to-day conversations of setting up one-on-ones and developing. And then we started with Thriving at Altos, and that leadership foundation. What we built is, at first, in-home workshops designed, with my team and some experts externally on giving and receiving feedback, which then developed this year into the Altos Academy, in which there's a whole lineup of, you want to be an expert in this is your development area, these are courses you can choose from. You want to be an expert in this is feedback that you've gotten, and having that holistic so all employees can really feel capable. And that's also something that I think about when developing programs with my team, is you want people to feel really capable, you want them to feel confident, and then you want them to have community. So you want to think about, as they're learning, how can they feel safe, and then you can do that through having a community. So we just grew and scaled, but you first start out with what's the baseline that you want leaders to exhibit, feel, know, see, and do. And then how do you bring people along through community, through feeling competent, feeling confident. Those are some foundational things.
Great points. And the coaching piece, especially starting off at the very beginning, can be very powerful and very instrumental in building the connection, and really then everything else kind of follows if you put in place the systems to support it. Yeah. And Dana, you are also in a very complex environment and growing, and how have you addressed developing these programs at scale?
Yeah, so similar to a lot of what Connie shared, Regeneron, just to share quickly, is also a biotech organization. And the way our company strategy is it really is follow the science. So we don't only look at certain therapeutic areas. Wherever the science kind of leads us is where we will go down and hopefully at the end have medicines that are life-saving for patients. And I think a lot of our learning strategy is sort of similar to our company's overall strategy. So in terms of how we look at designing things, I think I've had the privilege, I've been at Regeneron almost 11 years, so started when it was we would say a tiny company, 3,000 employees. Now we're over 15,000 globally. And a lot of the folks, myself included, and people on our team have our masters in OD, and then we also have done lots of different diverse skills and roles over the years, which I think has really helped us to stay connected to the business. I think part of what we do in terms of how we design things is based a lot around science, but a strong connection also to our HR business partners. So we're oftentimes, the way we're sort of organized is, not only do people on the team have a core, let's say they're focused on frontline leadership or executive leadership, but in addition to that, they also have a part of our parent organization that they're responsible for. So they might be focused on our executive leadership development, and they have a business relationship with, let's say, R&D. And I think being embedded in the business that way, along with a really tight connection to our HR business partners, I had the opportunity to be an HR business partner for 6 years. It was an incredible opportunity to both be in that role and then also be in a center of excellence role. So sort of having really understanding what HRBPs need from our kinds of teams, and then what our kinds of teams, how we need to deploy our work also sometimes and connect through HR business partners. So I think looking at those things along with, as we all know, our pre and post data metrics, what is that telling us? But even beyond the metrics, it's sometimes really also those anecdotal things. So one of the programs that we're working on is similar to what Connie had shared. We often hire MDs who are either right out of school or they have not really practiced and don't have experience in drug development, which is a completely different skill set that they need to understand. And then at Regeneron, we do drug development very differently than other companies do drug development. And so actually my colleague that's here is leading a program for how do we actually not just hire, because there's a niche amount of people in the market that have that skill, but also how do we assimilate those folks in? What are both the leadership pieces and components that they need to understand, because they've mainly just been in academia, as well as how do they really introduce themselves into drug development? How do they feel like they can have a home at Regeneron? So that's one of our examples of sort of a very customized program that's aligned to our business strategy.
Another great example. Thank you, Dana. And Kelly, you were recognized for reimagining your learning and transitioning it from a service provider to a true business driver. How did you approach that?
We had I won't say a unique moment, but in some ways, VML was the product of a merger of 4 of the oldest advertising companies in the world. And we were, my team was, the team that I had was half of the team that it would become. And in that moment, we had this, I think it was almost like we had one chance to make an impression about who we were going to be, like and to help the new leadership understand what our credibility was, what our brand was, what we stood for. And so one of the first things that we did was we introduced ourselves to the CEO, to all the capability leads, and we asked them, how could we be of service? We are thought of as a strategic partner, that we are, like, if the business wants something to succeed, they need to bring us in, and they need to bring us in early. So, I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say, I don't know what advice I would have to do that over, because it was kind of a unique moment, other than to, if you have the opportunity to figure out or to understand if your business has announced what your strategic goals are, and if you can just ask that simple question, is how can I be of service? What can I do to help us grow? I think that's probably the best advice I can give you.
And Kelly, that's a great example in our progression model as we see organizations mature and not react, you're scaling yourself to be agile, so that when you hear what that big project is or that acquisition or merger, you're able to jump right in and be able to pick and choose what's going to fit. And maybe not everything's going to be perfect, but at least you have you're in a better position than trying to just react and throw anything out there.
Yeah, and what's interesting about that is that it also, I would not be sitting here if I hadn't taken that approach, because a lot of the results that we got was as, I would say, an outcome of getting the buy-in from our leaders. So I know this is not the moment to talk about AI, but I will tell you how I used AI. I took all of the awards, all of the case studies, everything that I won in the past year, and I made a project within Claude. And I asked Claude, what was the thing that I did that made the biggest difference? Like, what was the change? What was the impact? And Claude said, it was when Eric Campbell, CEO of VML North America, created Focus Friday, and results for this program that we had called Open Everyday, it was an AI program, jumped from 34% to 74% penetration in one day.
Wow.
And I said to Claude, I was like, yeah, but I am not Eric Campbell. And what Claude said back was that, yes, but you created the conditions for Eric Campbell to believe this was a moment to invest. And in a 100% billable environment, that a CEO who used to be the chief client officer would invest 2 hours of billable time for every employee across North America to say that you need to take this training. It did not take 2 hours. I don't know why he gave 2 hours, but he gave us 2 hours. But it's a way if you align yourself correctly, you may not be responsible for the biggest wins that you have.
Great points. And Sarah, being that you're at the intersection of customer service and training, and you launched also another bold training strategy, what was the biggest barrier, and how did you address the cultural issues and the learning needs?
So our biggest barrier was really the difference in maturity in our member organizations. GS1 is a federated organization, non-for-profit, composed by 120 member organizations, plus a global office where I belong to. And we work as a federated model, each member organization being independent but subjected to the federation rules and governance. And so we are well known for the barcode you see on all the items in retail, so when you buy online. But each of them, they have different geographies, different level of maturities, different cultures, a language which is different. Not all of them are very proficient in English. And adoption in this model, buy-in, cannot be imposed. It comes with when they recognize the value in what we do, in what we offer as global office. And when designing this new training strategy, instead of building it at global level and then rolling it out, we decided to build it together with the training community across our federation. So with a group of member organization training experts, so we formed, we shared this objective, and we worked together towards the new strategy, starting from the needs, the diverse needs of all these member organizations when they train their staff and they train their members, so industry at the end. And then we socialized the first models, the first processes, the first approach in different workshops, in person, virtual, several formats, and listened to all the feedback, all the needs, all the different iterations, during different iterations. And it was a learning experience for me, my team, and all these people, because we were all together able to build a space, create a space where peer learning, understanding, and a feedback culture could be shared. And then another thing that we also did to overcome these challenges was also pilot test through small pilots and then scale. This is something we always do at GS1 because our federation allows this. So we pilot with some member organizations, we share the results with the bigger audience, and then we decide, do we scale, do we adjust, do we refine, or no, we stop. So this is also something we do. This helped a lot. So the thing is that differences are important, needs are more important, and we try to all adjust, all understand, and be very comfortable in our ecosystem altogether.
Thank you, Sarah. And Tracy, you spent the last couple of years really building out your learning experiences and overall learning at your organization. So can you tell us about that experience and how did you help to scale and to truly grow the organization?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for us in the healthcare industry, I think the biggest difference is we really need to be consistent with the operating rhythm. For us, learning involves really two key components. So it's our quality assurance or our QA program as well as our training program. So on the QA side, to be consistent, we created a predictable cadence of quality reviews for all of our frontline team members. So, and then on the training side, that means that every new employee or an employee that's transitioning has a repeatable plan so that no matter what's changing around us, as it always does in revenue cycle, the volumes, priorities, workflows, different things like that, everyone starts as a new employee with the same foundation. Another thing that we did that shifted a lot is just making sure that we had a single source of performance. So when everyone understood the same definitions, the same scoring, and the same red, yellow, green categories, it cut out any confusion and freed up our QA or our training staff to be able to train the teams more with coaching and developing people instead of trying to interpret different versions of what someone felt like the metrics were. And then the last, I think, is visibility. So everyone knows what they're responsible for in that process. So how we measure success, when we'll check again, and the level of transparency, I think, has built confidence, encourages everyone to have ownership in the process, and keeps our quality and competence moving in the right direction, even when, again, everything in the revenue cycle environment changes daily.
Thank you, Tracy. Absolutely. And Connie, as you're thinking about the future and you're thinking about, there's a lot coming at you every day, and again, I know we spoke yesterday and you all shared how you felt and proud that your teams felt about you and how you gave back to them. What are some of the things that you're thinking about for this year that can, just kind of empower you to continue to do what you do?
Yeah. I would say one of the things that really drives me truly is we have such a spectacularly ambitious mission. And I think oftentimes about if we accomplish as a company, and just to kind of reset, where we're at, what our mission is as a company, is we're looking to reverse disease and disability, which is incredibly profound. It sounds interesting, maybe a little bit like, wow, what does that mean? But if we're able to do that, as I mentioned the other day, this could change world economies. It could change like what it means to be a doctor, what it means to be what it means for people to live better, live longer, and so many other things. So I always think about how can we accomplish our mission? And it takes my breath away. Our mission takes my breath away, truly. And with that, what I set up is how do people collaborate? So, we oftentimes probably use the word collaborate, think about, but truly, what are the tactics and what are the forums? What's the community? What's the connection that my team and I can set up so people can collaborate? So we're looking to build upon this year even further, that we saw a lot of success, and that brought me here to this stage, as well as the award we won last night, which I was so proud of, is my team and I set up really deeply this year and intensely on giving and receiving feedback. So sure, we have biannual review processes and things like that. We expect managers to have ongoing check-ins, but really we did highly experiential workshops, and then I said, we have to make this come to life. Because it's one thing for all of us to teach something and have and classroom's important to gain skills, to have dialogue, to understand concepts, but really put it into practice. That's a little bit of the hard work and pushing people over the line. So what I did is I said to the team in November, I got the idea, November, it's kind of, we're already started the process, but you have to be bold with these kinds of things. And then, try to communicate well. I said, we're gonna have employees drive their feedback. And some leaders were aghast, well, wait a second, they're not gonna be truthful. They're gonna just go to their friends and talk to their friends and say all good things. And I said, they could, but your job is and they could do that. And then that means that unfortunately we may not have honest people that are missing the point, or who are totally missing the point. So I said, but we have to have them build this skill and capability of saying, what am I doing well? What am I not? Let me tell you what I learned and all of that. And why it was so important. Well, guess what? I did a pulse survey about right before December, nobody wants to hear from human resources of people right before the holidays. But I said, I'm gonna make it fun. I was tell me what you learned and didn't learn and how it went, and you're gonna enter a raffle. And I gave away $25 Amazon gift cards. I made it fun, and I had a fun email that my team sent out. We had 289 responses within 4 hours. And people were I never knew how much I was appreciated for this I never knew. I learned that I really wasn't effective in facilitating, and it hurt, but I'm gonna really be more effective. I'm excited about the new year. So what we're doing this year is really building upon that and deepening that and taking what many people appreciated was giving them the maturity and the power to drive their own feedback. And of course, managers did their thing as well and assessed their employees, all of that, but really driving employee ownership of their learning journey, employee ownership of their performance. You treat people as if they're capable, and most of the time you're gonna get the results that you want.
That's great that you're really, you're instilling it in them and to take ownership. It's a lot easier when than having to push it on them as something that's mandated. Dana, and as you've had success in aligning with the business and creating this culture, can you share a little bit about that and then how you see it going forward?
Sure. So one of the interesting pieces about Regeneron's culture is that essentially every piece of the company sort of operates and a little bit has its own culture. So what we have found over the years is if you want to do something within global development, you work with those stakeholders, you can roll it out, or commercial or manufacturing. But what has been more challenging is when you're trying to do something enterprise-wide. And just to share a quick story, because my colleagues in the room, about 2.5 years ago, our organization does a senior leadership meeting that brings together all of the vice presidents and above every year to do sort of an annual summit, kind of state of the business and what do you want the strategy going forward. And they decided a few years ago that we really need to double down on leadership development. We're rapidly moving into the future. We have many of our executives are retirement eligible and really are just working because of a love of the company and the belief in the science and the mission of the company. And so we started to roll out more things enterprise-wide. And as we all know, there's such a benefit of bringing people together from different parts of the business. And not just the content's great, but a lot of what we hear is just being with someone in manufacturing when I've never worked with someone in that part of the business is really important. And I'm laughing because one of my colleagues told me that he actually had to sit down with one of our most senior science leaders because he couldn't understand why would he want to put one of his scientists in a program with people from commercial or global development or manufacturing. So that's where we started, having to explain, well, what's the benefit of why we would want these leaders, especially folks that in the future would be vice presidents or above. Like, they need to understand enterprise thinking. They need to understand that, you know, if we make this decision in R&D, how is that going to trickle down by the time that we're commercializing this medicine? And so what's exciting is that what we have found in terms of our annual My Voice scores or things like that, that we are finally starting to see huge improvements in things like, I trust my manager. I can have an open conversation with my manager. My manager provides me with feedback about my career. And what was happening prior to this, if you go back, let's say, for the first 6 or 7 years I was at Regeneron, is we would always have very high scores for, would you recommend Regeneron to a friend? Is Regeneron a great place to work? But all of the scores around your manager's effectiveness were always lower. So it was almost like people were staying because of the belief in the mission of the company or what we were doing. And we always say doing well by doing good. So a very highly ethical organization. But in terms of like their day-to-day experience with their direct manager, it wasn't as effective as we wanted that to be. So to finally be able to see that correlation between what we're teaching around giving feedback and the tone that a leader sets within the team, how they play a huge role in the culture and how people experience the organization, and then to be able to see that in our, we call it My Voice, but in our satisfaction and engagement scores has been really huge. So that's just one example.
It gave the managers probably opportunity to assess where they needed to grow themselves, because they probably were put in maybe these positions with the talent shortage and the leadership shortage that oftentimes now everyone's kind of thrown into these positions because they're doing their job well. But it takes time for them to be able to manage and to communicate effectively.
I think it's a great point. Just quickly, like in our manufacturing side of the organization, and in some years we were doubling in size. So we had many, and that's also where we have our youngest average population. So you would have, someone who maybe is, 26, who they were a lead, and then all of a sudden now they're responsible for, 10 to 15 employees. There was a huge learning curve there. So to be able to see specifically around the manager effectiveness being at the same level of, do you recommend this organization, was really impactful.
Right, thank you. And Kelly, you spend a lot of time embedding learning into the workflow and also measuring what's working, what's not working. Can you talk a little bit about how you went about being able to measure learning and also continue to apply it within the flow of work?
Sure. So one of the things that, I don't know if this phrase resonates, but has anyone heard the term authentic performance task? So this is a really geeky way of talking about something that's not extra to your work. My daughter, if she has to do a book report, she'll never have to do a book report when she goes to work. So learning how to do a book report is probably not the best. It wouldn't be something I would give to the people of VML. And so when we think about how can we get as close to, when we make learning, how can we get as close to actually it being something that they have to do for work, such that they'll get ahead by doing the training? And so one of the things that we did, and I apologize if anyone has heard me speak before about this, is we built a program called Open Every Day. And every day is spelled like every day, but with an I at the end, because it's cool that way when you're talking about AI. And but we have a proprietary AI operating system, I guess is the way you could refer to it, called WPP Open, so open every day. And the idea behind it was we needed people to actually use this platform every day. We needed them to open every day because it was a $300 million investment that was protecting $895 million of client revenue, and 9% of the organization was using it. So how do you, the immediate need was, if people are going to sell it, if people are going to use AI for their work, It needs to be in a gated place because we have enormous clients where we can't have like Coke understanding what Pepsi is going to do, so we can't put it into Claude. So people have to use this particular platform, and it's still not most user-friendly of platforms. So what we tried to do was we tried to figure out what are the tasks that everyone across the agency needs to learn how to do. And then how can we make this not, here's a screenshot, and here's a PDF, and here's what generative AI means. Jamie, who's here with me, she used Claude to teach herself JavaScript so that she could articulate storyline, and create 5 simulations that people actually, while they were in the training, we called them micro methods. And so they took you about 5 minutes to do. And it took you from how do you log in? So people had to type in what the URL was. So that's how people learned what the URL was, so that when they went to the actual operating system, they could actually get there. And it took you through everything from, if anyone goes to the pain of Okta, took you through, it looked and felt exactly like you were in the in WPP Open. And what the result was at the end, we put a button that said, you want to try out what you learned? Go to Workspace. And then with that button, instead of it going directly to the Workspace, we used Bitly. So we could actually measure how many times people clicked go to Workspace after they had gone through this simulated environment. And what we found was that almost 8,000 people clicked go to Workspace on their own. And so by creating what was an authentic performance task, something that, teaching them how to do something like, for example, maybe it was taking meeting notes. This is 2 years ago now, so this is table stakes now, but taking something like our Future 100 report and making an agent that you could ask questions of it. And after that, people voluntarily clicked this button to go and use it. And what happened was we went from being the laggard in the WPP network in terms of the use of this platform to being the #1 user. And we still are to this day.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for sharing. And Sarah, can you share one single metric that allowed you to, or allowed your learning to thrive, and also how you were able to influence and continue to influence your stakeholders?
Sure, so I have a short answer to long days of work, annual work for all of us. Basically, in our federated model, training cannot be mandated. So the 2 key things are adoption, how the training platform, the material is adopted and reused by the staff at the member organization for their improvement of skills and capabilities, but also for engaging with the industry. And the other one is their satisfaction to our global office. So both of them, if both of them are high, it means this is a very strong signal for all of us. We are doing a great job, and this is really our mission.
Thank you, Sarah. And Tracy, you're known as a champion, a learning champion, or a champion of developing people. And what have you done, or what's your approach to being recognized as a champion?
So I think one approach that, and we're definitely no experts in this area, but we're moving the needle for us in developing leaders. It has been intentional. So teaching, allowing the application, and then an assessment method. So especially when within our revenue cycle functions, they are repeated tasks. So that's easy to do. I think for our QA, it means that it assists team members and leads, managers to connect with the findings directly so that they all can understand that it's not just the quality, it's about outcomes for us. That can mean decreased productivity, additional denials, what our client experience is. So we don't really just like to score the work. We start telling the story behind why the quality is so important. And I think the other piece in our training, we've shifted from just delivering content so that our training team members are truly building a capability. So we're strengthening their skill sets. We set the clear performance expectations, and we've created a structured way so that we just stop teaching processes and start developing confident, job-ready contributors who can impact at least our front lines from day one. And I think the last thing is with the combination of building the confidence within the frontline team members, them having business understanding, and everyone really coaching translates into better quality, more consistent client experience for us again. And it's proved that when we invest in our people the right way, the business outcomes follow.
Thank you, Tracy. I'm going to open up to the room.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing great ideas. I know many of us are writing furiously, so we look forward to stealing and making the world a better place. Was the sponsorship of your program development and your training activities, did it come from above? Is that, how did that begin? Or was it more of a grassroots that you then presented to senior leadership?
I mean, I can take it. I know for us, in our organization, it was something, so I'm a certified coder for 23 years in medical billing, and that's just something that we really have to protect compliantly, especially when we're billing federal insurances. So I originally brought the idea when I came to Caduceus 5 years ago that we really needed some type of quality program. And I think in learning what quality issues we had, we then were able to develop a training program that assisted the existing employees, but not only them, but new employees coming in. So everyone came in with the same foundation and understood what the expectations were. And that's also helped with us, our progression plan as well. So someone can come into our organization, learn those roles and tasks, and also be trained for further leadership roles within our organization.
I would say from a Regeneron perspective, just to share another quick story, when I joined 11 years ago, and at that time it was an organization development and learning function. Now we're sort of two adjacent teams, but we work close together. They thought that OD and learning was like, oh, I want to, take my team bowling. Can you come and, plan this event? And we were like, wait, okay, that is not what organization development or team building is about. So we had to work really hard, and I think the way we've done it is a proven track record. I loved what you had said, Kelly, really adding value. So oftentimes it is not a mandate typically that's coming from our CEO or our most senior leaders on down. It typically has been almost one intervention at a time, and then someone else saying, like the head of, our chief financial officer being like, I had this great experience. Here's how my team has, where we were to where we are now, and then using that, and then kind of telling friends, across the organization, you need to call in this team and see if they can sort of help with this initiative. I would say it's been more grassroots over the years. Now there is more of an expectation where I think our most senior leaders are really realizing the value that learning brings. But the two gentlemen who founded our company, this is the only company they've ever worked in that they created. So there hasn't really been an expectation of, I've used to working in these other organizations that had all of these programs, and so therefore we should have them at Regeneron. It has been more grassroots, but I think really demonstrating value at every intervention and being able to show, not just, now we have a lot more metrics than we used to have, but I think it's been more of that anecdotal and really connecting and understanding what is the business need, similar to what I talked about around our medical MDs joining the company, and we were seeing turnover. So being able to sort of design a program that helps to address that, and then seeing that that's getting better, that then helps with building the case for learning.
And I would say that it's an and, not an or, grassroots or top-down. So I utilize our CEO's time sparingly but meaningfully. Like, so for example, in his beginning of the year, welcome back from winter break note, he and I were very aligned that he would send a very strong positive message, because our review season, we call it reflections in our organization, because it's all about learning. And that's another thing I wanted to share, is that I treat everything human resources as learning. It's not just, you know, it's fully integrated, that employees are always learning, leaders are always learning, my team and I are always learning. And so, so that was like kind of really a strong positive message of, now that we're back from break, really look forward to all your reflections, you know, review conversations, the opportunity you'll have to think about what worked last year, what did you learn, what are you going to take into for a strong 2026. There's a communications element, there's a support, really strong show of support element, and then also just going off of a word that I really appreciated that Dana said was anecdotal as well. So when I'm about to launch something, or my team's about to launch something, I'll gather a couple of leaders informally and say, hey, we're gonna do this. Like, what do you think are some blind spots? What do you think is gonna work out well? What's the timing of it? Get some like real-time feedback, and that's relationship. So that's something that I would say that we all really need to focus on, is really good relationships in which you can have those brief, casual, on-the-fly conversations. That's not the whole of it. You know, we have a lot of structure in our organization on my team as well, and then you can kind of look around the corners, and then you have like what are the results, like how many people are attending, what's the feedback, like we always have attendance feedback, and my team and I put out a quarterly dashboard to our executive committee about what did we focus on, what were the results. It's not defensive, it's actually proactive, and I say, if you want to see anything else, let me know, and we're happy to put it into place. So it's kind of all of those things. So that's the anecdotal, it's an on the fly, it's, you know, really hearing from employees and groups about how things are working, sometimes a pulse survey, and sometimes, but change has to be dimensional. You can't move something meaningful forward without the dimensional, without the strong show of support, without me being very present and coaching people along, me helping my team and making sure that we're all doing things that will really make things successful, and being adaptable.
Also fascinating, great examples, and I have a few team members in the back here that are just wanting to get started on our next session. We ran over just a little bit, so I want to give everyone here joining me another round of applause. Thank you.